This is D3.js Data Visualization Projects for Beginners. My name is Michael Height and I'll be your instructor, and this is the course overview. Here I will give you a brief introduction to myself as well as what we will cover in the course. Now for a few words about myself so you know who I am and where I'm coming from. I'm an independent consultant, software architect, developer, evangelist, author, and trainer. I've been a software developer from the very first days of personal computers. I'm the author of a number of books on Packed Publishing, including D3.js by Example, Learning Pandas, Mastering Pandas for Finance, InstantLucine.net, and Web Scraping with Python Cookbook. I have experience as a lead developer of trading systems that include data visualization front ends. These front ends have consisted of a number of different technologies, one of my favorite which is D3.js. My personal interests include computer graphics, data visualization, data science, user experience, natural user interfaces, and cloud and Internet of Things technologies. Now let's go over the course and see what we're going to learn. In this course, we will walk through the creation of an animated data visualization built on D3.js. We'll start from scratch by creating a development environment. We will learn how to manipulate data, create visualizations, and add interactivity and animation. And by the end of the course, we will have created an animated and interactive bubble chart based on World Bank data. Let's go over some of the goals of this course. A first goal is to get you up and running with a development environment that you can use to create D3.js applications. From there, I want you to learn how to manipulate data and use that to drive dynamic data visualizations, and also learn to create dynamic data-driven charts using D3.js. And a final goal is to know how to represent complex data for interactive exploration. The target of this course is web developers who want to learn how to create data visualizations, data scientists who want to learn how to create web-based data visualization, for visual thinkers who want to be able to create visualizations to get a point across on the web, and finally, for anyone who has an interest in learning how to create dynamic web-based data visualizations. Now let's go over a few of the prerequisites needed for the course. Fundamentally, all you will need is a computer and an internet connection. It's expected that you have a working knowledge of JavaScript and maybe a little bit of familiarity with D3.js. We'll be focusing on creating a data visualization with D3.js, but we'll also pick up a lot of the fundamentals along the way. So if you don't know D3.js, you'll be able to learn it from scratch. For an operating system, you can use Windows, Mac, or Linux. I'll show you how to create a development environment for each. You can use any editor that you desire. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. It's cross-platform, and if you use it, you'll have an identical experience. It is assumed that you'll have Node.js and Google Chrome installed. And finally, it is assumed that you'll have a web server installed locally to serve up your content into the browser. Now let's go over what we'll be covering in the course. The course is broken into a number of sections, and each of those sections will build upon the previous. We will start with an introductory section where we'll learn how to create a development environment. This will include installing Visual Studio Code, getting the code samples, installing Live Server, and running a simple D3.js example. Next, we'll look at using data. Every data visualization needs underlying data. We'll get data from the World Bank, take a look at it, and get to know it well as we'll use it throughout the course. This will include performing a bunch of data munging, as well as learning how to load that data from a web server into our application. In the next section, we'll learn about creating bubbles, using SVG within D3.js to create visuals that represent our data. This will include creating bubbles with SVG, sizing the bubbles based upon properties in the data, and also selecting a color for the bubble based upon the data. The next section will focus on scaling the data. In this, we'll go and decide how big we want to make our visualization and how to map the data values into that rectangle within the browser. During this, we'll learn how to understand the extents of our data and use that to create a D3.js linear scale to map our data into visual constructs and also to use scales to select colors based upon our data. Then we'll look at creating annotations. This involves adding descriptive information to the presentation so that users can understand what they're looking at. This will include creating axes, putting labels on those axes, adding text to the chart, and adding titles. It will also include adding a legend and grid lines, and finally rotating x-axis labels. Next, we'll learn how to organize our data. We'll learn this so that we can select specific subsets of data for visual presentation. During this section, we'll look at how to organize our data based upon keys and how to create a reusable rendering function to render data based upon those keys. The next section, titled Smart Rendering, will focus on selecting data using D3.js's general update pattern. During this, we'll learn how to update the visual presentation as data items are added, removed, or properties change. In the next section, titled Slicing with Sliders, we'll add a slider to our page to allow the user to select the year they want to render. Then we'll look at adding animation to our visualization. We'll learn about D3.js transitions and how we can use those to animate the movement of visual elements, how to fade in new elements, and fade out visuals that need to be removed. And in our final section, we'll learn how to add mouse-based interactivity to our visualization. We'll look at how we can interact with visuals using the mouse. We'll add pop-ups and tooltips on mouse hover. We'll select and highlight various visuals. And we'll also look at how to show detail in a properties panel. That's the overview of the course. There's a lot of great things to learn while we put this visualization together, and a lot of fun to be had while we do it.